Born on Sereno in the year 102 BBY, Dooku was taken into the Jedi Order, where he would become the apprentice to both famed Cerulean and the Jedi Grandmaster Yoda, where he was noted as a prodigy with both the Force and lightsaber combat. He was known as a wise and powerful master of the Order, where he would train both Kamari Vosa and Qui-Gon Jinn, the former ultimately falling to the dark side, and the latter becoming a renowned master himself. However, Dooku became disillusioned with the Jedi Order and ultimately departed after the death of his former apprentice Jinn at the hands of the Sith Lord Darth Maul. He soon came into contact with the secret Sith Lord Darth Sidious, who turned him to the dark side, where he became Darth Tyrannus. As a Sith Lord, Dooku killed his old friend Sifo Dyas and took over his plans for a clone army, while using the bounty hunter Jango Fett as the template to fight the Jedi in war and ultimately betray them. In the year 22 BBY, he would assign Jango Fett with the assassination of Senator Padme Amidala in an attempt to turn Newt Gunray to his separatist cause, which would lead to the outbreak of the Clone Wars. During the war, Dooku would become a renowned political figure, leading the Separatists in battle, while Sidious secretly led the Republic, and was also responsible for the training of the cyborg Separatist commander, General Grievous, his personal dark acolyte, Asajj Ventress, the Night Brother, Savage Opress, as well as turning multiple Jedi to the dark side, including the renowned Swordmaster Sora Bulk and Jedi Master Quinlan Vos, though the latter rejected the dark side in the end. In the year 19 BBY, Dooku would be confronted by Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, who were attempting to rescue Chancellor Palpatine, who was secretly Darth Sidious. He made short work of Kenobi, but was ultimately defeated by Skywalker, whom Sidious had been planning to replace Dooku with. At Palpatine's orders, Anakin beheaded Dooku and would later replace him as Sidious's apprentice, Darth Vader. Born on Coruscant during the reign of the Galactic Empire, Shira Ilan Korla Bri was a Force-sensitive student of the Empire, where she would catch the attention of the Sith Lord Darth Vader, who would make her his secret Sith apprentice. After the infamous Battle of Yavin, Shira was sent on a mission to infiltrate the Rebel Alliance to find the Rebel pilot who destroyed the battle station, Luke Skywalker, and either kill him or tarnish his reputation. She quickly became a close ally to Skywalker and even got romantically involved with him, until Skywalker shot down her TIE fighter during a mission where he got a premonition through the Force of her dark side nature. She would survive this altercation, however, and would be reconstructed into a cybernetically enhanced monster. There, she would rename herself Lumaya, and would seek vengeance against Skywalker for years to come. Lumaya spent the next several years learning ancient Sith texts and tomes, as she began to have a knack for Sith sorcery and magic, and constructed a personalized version of the already rare Light Whip. Lumaya would attempt to strike out at Luke, and constantly clashed with the Skywalker family. She would conscript the Dark Jedi Flint and Alima Rar into a makeshift Sith order in the hopes of rebuilding the ancient order after the deaths of Sidious and Vader. However, she would soon set her sights on Luke's nephew, Jacen Solo. She preyed on his remorse for all the death during the Yuuzhan Vong War, as well as his secret fascination with the dark side to turn him into her apprentice. After Solo killed his aunt, Mara Jade Skywalker, Lumaya falsely claimed responsibility and engaged a rage-fueled and bloodthirsty Luke, who was now in Lumaya's shoes seeking vengeance. After a titanic duel, Lumaya was beheaded, while Jacen, now the Sith Lord Darth Caedus, would go on to instigate the Second Galactic Civil War. Before we get into this matchup, I would like to make a point about using TCW compared to the original multimedia project, as there's a little bit of controversy between the two sources in the Versus series community, and so I'm going to clean it up and basically, explain how I use... It's my personal opinion that both TCW and the Multimedia Project are basically two different timelines that lead to the same thing, that being Revenge of the Sith. So, same characters, same everything, but two different timelines altogether. There are some characters that just were so radically altered from the original timeline that when you put them side by side, there's no true way to analyze them as one character altogether, and you have to choose one or the other. Then there's a section of characters that actually is very consistent between both sides of the franchise, and I am more than willing to take from both aspects. And then there's also characters that appear only in TCW or only in the Multimedia Project. In that case, I'm all fine with it. I'll just use TCW or just the Multimedia Project. No problems there. In the case of Count Dooku, I would say he goes in the second category, as there's nothing in TCW that contradicts anything that is demonstrated in the Multimedia series. However, I will not be using anything relating to Dooku in the novel Dark Disciple. My reasoning for this is that this novel takes the three biggest candidates of the can't be put together and puts them in one big book. And they constantly downplay Dooku to Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress's level just to make an interesting story. Dooku is underpowered in this book specifically for the plot, and it is worse underpowered than anything he goes through in TCW. It is a big ripple in the stream, and it disrupts everything, so I'm kicking it out. Meanwhile, I will be using Lumaya completely from Legends continuity, seeing as, well, she's only from Legends continuity. But without further ado, I present to you Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus, versus Dark Lady Lumaya. Let's begin. A human male of 83 years of age, Dooku was well past his physical prime and now entering his elder years. However, this was no shortcoming for Dooku with the power of the Force, and he was also stated to be in better shape than most men half his age. Dooku's physical strength was quite considerable, as he has been able to kick aside Quinlan Vos and Anakin Skywalker, and has matched the strength of Skywalker, Savage Opress, and General Grievous, though he could be overwhelmed under intense and constant barrages. Dooku is also quite agile. He has evaded blaster fire and even force pushes from other force wielders, and has been able to keep up with General Grievous, who has contended with 5 Jedi, as well as briefly holding off the speed of Yoda, who is able to evade 3 Jedi Council Masters with no weapon. Dooku was also quite tough, as shown by him taking a kick to the stomach from Anakin, who was noted for having lightsaber strikes as strong as meteor strikes by Dooku himself, and barely being affected at all, as well as surviving Mother Talzin's ritual and Asajj Ventress's ambush in the middle of his sleep. That being said, Dooku was still 83 years old, and no matter how much shape he was in, he could still tire out. But that, as it may, he was still incredibly dangerous and not one to overlook. A human female in her early 60s, Lumaya was once a highly gifted combatant, now enhanced into a cybernetic monstrosity. Her new suit carried many similarities to her master, Darth Vader, which is befitting since both were cybernetic Sith and master and apprentice, where all her limbs were either enhanced with armored bracers or replaced outright. Some of her organs were replaced by cybernetic ones, and her entire body was encased in a heavy Sith silver armor, though unlike Vader, she didn't have a respirator, and instead opted for a breath mask, and her suit allowed for full range of movement, unlike the stiff prosthetics of Vader. And she also had mini blasters in her arms for surprise attacks, though if the power pack was shot, she would get blown up. Lumaya's strength was a sight to behold, as she is casually tossed around humanoids, forceful or otherwise, and has matched the strength of council-level Jedi in battle. She didn't share her Master Vader's limitations in the realm of speed, and was in fact very quick and agile, being shown to be able to dodge blaster fire and keep up with council-level adepts like Mara Jade Skywalker, Tracina Lobi, and even Luke Skywalker, who is stated to be moving so fast that he appeared to be wielding 30 lightsabers at once by the Yu Zhangvong, who are immune to the Force. Lumaya's durability was also considerable, as she has been able to tank blaster shots and has even survived light hits from a lightsaber, as well as an explosion when one of the power packs in her suit was shot. Similar to Dooku, Lumaya was not all that hampered by the dark side, and retained a healthy skin tone and emerald green eyes, unlike most Sith. In conclusion, Lumaya was a powerful specimen of physical might, forged by the steel of Sith and the training in the darkness. This conclusion is pretty easy to make, though not as one-sided as many may think. In terms of strength, Lumaya gets the edge, as her cybernetics enhance her might to the superhuman levels, coupled with her force augmentation puts her far above Dooku. However, I don't think the Count is helpless here. Look at his sparring sessions with Grievous and Savage Opress. He uses his agility to keep his opponents at arm's range, where their strength isn't as effective, but against Anakin, the young Jedi wouldn't give the Count such an opportunity. Though I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention that Dooku was able to kick Anakin away during this duel in the novel, and with Lumaya's weapon being more of a range weapon, this plays more into Dooku's hands. Speed-wise, I'd give the slight edge to Dooku, as he simply has more feats, though Lumaya is not far behind. Durability is also Lumaya's game. While Dooku is tough, Lumaya is superhuman, and let's not forget that she survived Luke shooting down her TIE fighter before the cybernetics. Lumaya gets the physical edge. Count Dooku was one of the most renowned swordsmen of his era. Early in the Clone Wars, it was believed that only Yoda and Mace Windu could defeat him, and while Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker also reached that level, even Windu could only stalemate him, and Anakin had to draw on his rage, plus let the Count start fatiguing, since before that they were just stalemated. Dooku was a complete master of Form 2 Makashi. Also known as the Contention form, Makashi was the second form of lightsaber combat, and the only form directly designed for lightsaber-to-lightsaber combat. It relied on precise, one-handed cuts, thrusts, and parries to undermine the opponent's guard and disarm them. Dooku, however, pointed out that enslavement to form led to stagnation, and also had skill in all other lightsaber forms, and could effectively train anyone in the other styles, like Qui-Gon Jinn in Ataru, and General Grievous in all 7 forms, though he almost exclusively used Makashi himself. However, he wasn't limited, as displayed when he used the 9-man draw-close technique and the acrobatics of Ataru in his fighting sequence. Dooku wielded a custom-built curved lightsaber. Unlike more traditional curved lightsabers like the ones wielded by Darth Bane or Asajj Ventress, which were hook-handled, Dooku's had more of a pistol grip, which fit better into the palm of the hand. The weapon also had a dual-phase function, which pointed at skill in Trikata. However, he never actually used this function. The weapon was powered by a synthetic crystal, which usually traded maneuverability and blade stability for cutting power, though based on Dooku's fighting style, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. My personal theory is that Dooku fabricated a red synthetic crystal, but didn't harmonize it with the dark side of the Force, to signify his allegiance to the Sith without compromising his technique, or perhaps an unwillingness to go fully over to the dark side, similar to his lacking yellow eyes. Dooku was so skilled in Makashi that he was able to make up for the style's weaknesses, which included defending against blaster fire, multiple opponents, and more strength-based attackers. Dooku was also skilled at Dun Mok, where he would use verbal taunts to weaken his opponent's resolve. However, this could backfire, which got him killed in the end. On the whole, Dooku was a master of the lightsaber, and arguably the greatest Makashi master to ever live. With decades of training and dedication, Lumaya was considered an elite swordmaster, which got her singled out for training under Darth Vader, and by the time of the new Jedi Order, she was one of the best duelists of her era, Grandmaster Luke Skywalker actually considering if he could defeat her or not, which speaks to the Dark Lady's skill level. Not only has the Dark Lady been trained in all 7 forms of lightsaber combat, but was also trained in marksmanship and unarmed combat while at the Imperial Academy. Lumaya used her knowledge of each of the styles to create a unique hybrid style to better compensate for her chosen weapon. Lumaya's weapon was a customized light whip. The light whip was a lightsaber with a flexible blade. However, Lumaya also added 8 additional strands of metal and stride to add more angles of attack, while also increasing the surface area for defense. This is just pure speculation, but I believe that she trained in Nyman, specifically the 3rd variant that I explained in my Darth Malak vs. Inquisitor Jarek video, link will be in the description, and used it as the backbone to her hybrid style to ground her technique enough to stay controlled, yet stay radical enough. Also known as the moderation form, Nyman was a jack-of-all-trades fighting style that took bits and pieces from all styles to suit the needs of the moment. Easy to learn, though difficult to master. Lumaya's offense was devastating. She used aggressive flourishes and whip cracks, while also modifying the different strands of her whip to utterly bewilder her opponents and tear them to shreds. Defensively, she relied on wide swings and static blocks to block her opponent's weapons, while moving herself into a position for a more suitable area of attack. Tactically, Lumaya was very similar to Vader, where she relied on pattern recognition to analyze her opponent's style before sussing out their weaknesses as they fought, based on her knowledge of their style, which was great for opponents who kept a straightforward rhythm, but lacking against duelists who were more radical and switched up their styles more frequently. In terms of opponents she has faced, Lumaya has defeated Trisina Lobi and Mara Jade Skywalker in duels, and has contended with Luke Skywalker on many occasions where they traded wins and losses. However, even someone as skilled as Lumaya had her weaknesses. The best way to defeat the style was to wield a standard lightsaber paired off with a lightsaber Shoto to keep up with her multiple strands and her unorthodox methods. And as shown against Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, duelists who could match her skill level could win with only a single blade, though it would take a remarkable level of skill to do so. On the whole, Lumaya was a complete powerhouse with the lightsaber, and proved her mettle as one of the greatest swordswomen of the entire era. This may be the single hardest conclusion in all of my Versus videos. Both duelists were absolute masters of their styles and their unique weapons. What I find interesting between these two is that Dooku is in almost every way a traditional swordmaster, using a traditional form and technique in Makashi with almost nothing else, while Lumaya is the exact opposite with her radical hybrid style. In terms of where they stack in comparison, I see both as being in the same tier, that being high-tier Council Master to possibly even Grandmaster level. Now, many may be ready to point out that Dooku is at an instant disadvantage due to only having a single blade without a Shoto, but I have a counter. Dooku has used his footwork and acrobatics to keep General Grievous at arm's length and hold him off, and I think it's safe to say that Lumaya's style is about as radical as Grievous's. If Dooku can keep Grievous off, then I think he can do the same with Lumaya. That doesn't mean Lumaya is at a disadvantage, however, as her style is going to be keeping the Count hard at work, and Dooku won't have the same force advantage against Lumaya that he did Grievous. Tactically, Lumaya has the edge, as while Dooku isn't as predictable in his moveset as others, he still almost only uses Makashi, and it's only a matter of time before he uses the same move twice. Dun Mok will have little effect here, as we are dealing with Legacy of the Force Lumaya, not the Lumaya from the comics who is TCW Darth Maul level unstable, and the dual phase function on Dooku's weapon won't help him either since Dooku doesn't even use it. At the end of the day, I personally see both as being able to contend with what the other is bringing to the table, and I have to declare both Count Dooku and Dark Lady Lumaya as equals as martial artists and lightsaber duelists. Count Dooku was considered as one of the most powerful Force users of his era. He was noted as Darth Sidious's second strongest apprentice after Vader, and I would place him around the same tier of power as Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker, though the latter could bring some controversy. Dooku's use of Force-based physical augmentation allowed him to bring his physical attributes to the superhuman levels of all trained Force users. His use of telekinesis was both extremely powerful and varied, strong enough and skillful enough to throw around Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Grievous, which is made even more impressive since other Jedi couldn't land such an attack against the General, and he has also demonstrated Force waves powerful enough to send armies of troops away. Dooku was also skilled at manipulating his environment by throwing loose debris at his opponents, and on one occasion has gunned down a Jedi purely with telekinesis. His lifting range was in the multi-ton, as shown by him casually lifting several massive stones at his castle on Sereno. Dooku was also capable of Force-based strangulation, and could easily break through lesser Force wielders' guard, such as when he pulled Jedi Master Tipley in for a stab. He was also capable of telekinetic levitation, though not combatively viable, did show he had immense skill in his application. Dooku's telepathic skills were also quite advanced. He was capable of the basic mind tricks as well as beast manipulation, keeping a krayt dragon as a pet, and also has used the Quaytech meditation technique to hide his Force signature from other trained Force wielders, though it could be broken if other Force wielders were actively hunting him. Dooku was a master of the Sith staple Force Lightning, and was powerful enough to chain it through multiple opponents, and even combined it with telekinesis to move opponents aside, and was also capable of Tutamentis, powerful enough to knock aside his own redirected lightning against Yoda. He was also skilled at cleansing himself of toxins, however if they were unknown to him he couldn't do so, and he couldn't stop Mother Talzin's ritual against him. Lastly, Dooku was capable of Sith sorcery, helping Darth Sidious with an illusion against Yoda and creating a Force doppelganger to trick Anakin Skywalker. Dooku was almost always the first to break out the Force powers and was always quick on the draw. He wielded his powers subversively with immense precision rather than just bulldozing his enemies with sheer magnitude. On the whole, Dooku was immensely powerful in the Force, and stood as one of the strongest Force wielders of his era and the Sith Order as a whole. A powerful Force sensitive with a natural ability for Sith sorcery and magic, Lumaya was considered to be one of the most powerful Force wielders of her day. However, due to her cybernetic rebuild, she wasn't able to reach her full potential due to the Force being generated through living tissue. Despite this, she worked hard to circumvent these shortcomings and proved her mettle as a powerful Sith sorceress. Like all trained Force wielders, Lumaya was a master of Force-based physical augmentation to bring her abilities to the superhuman levels, and she coupled it with Dark Rage to boost her output even further. Unlike her master Vader, she barely relied on telekinesis, only ever using basic pushes, pulls, and throws, and even had a weakness towards it on a defensive front. Lumaya's telepathic powers were quite advanced. She was capable of the basic mind tricks and could also dominate the minds of subjects rather than just influence them. She was also capable of Force fear, which allowed her to project terror into a subject's mind, and also had an immunity to fear-based powers herself. In the realm of energy-based powers, Lumaya has never demonstrated use of Force lightning, similar to Vader, but was skilled in Tutamentis to negate energy, though to what degree we do not know. She was also skilled in Force Stun, which allowed her to overload a target's senses with Force energy and freeze them in place, as well as Force Flash, which was a flash of Force energy used to disable security systems or distract opponents in combat. As a former spy, Lumaya was skilled at masking her Force signature from other trained Force wielders, and only two beings to ever pierce her cloak were Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, who is the most powerful Force user to ever live, and Mara Jade Skywalker, who was also trained in such tactics. She was also skilled in the hibernation trance, which allowed her organs to slow to a crawl and appear dead, while the body would slowly heal from injuries. However, Lumaya's true breath of power was in regards to her skill in Sith sorcery and magic. She was able to cloak her appearance, warp the environment around herself and a target, create doppelgangers of herself, as well as being able to summon phantoms of dark side energy. All in all, Lumaya was a tribute to her masters, as well as the Sith sorcerers of old, and a true master of the dark side. Just as with lightsaber combat, I believe that both Count Dooku and Dark Lady Lumaya were about equals in regards to their levels of force power, and again were both in the high-tier Council Master range. Physical augmentation only amounts to their physical attributes, which we already spoke of. Telekinesis, however, is a completely different story. Where Lumaya barely uses TK at all, Dooku is a complete master of it, and Lumaya has been noted to have a weakness against such attacks, which the Count can take full advantage of. In terms of telepathy, I see both as being able to resist what the other is bringing, though I do feel Lumaya has more variety in the field. In terms of energy-based powers, while Dooku has Force Lightning and Lumaya doesn't, Lumaya does have Tutamentis, and I do see her as being powerful enough to be able to defend against Dooku's lightning. And even if Dooku does land a hit with the power, it is not as life-threatening to Lumaya as if Vader was hit by it. I also don't see Lumaya's Force Stun as harming Dooku, though Force Flash could catch the Count off guard. When it comes to Sith sorcery, Lumaya is definitely more powerful and more varied in her application. Yet Dooku can contend, as many of Lumaya's tricks have been used by the Count himself, notably Force illusions. In my view, these two can match each other in almost every field, except one: telekinesis. Lumaya's weakness against TK attacks, coupled with Dooku's sheer power, precision, and skill with the ability, just gives him the edge, especially since he almost always takes the initiative to use such abilities. Count Dooku gets the edge for Force abilities. There are a lot of story similarities between Count Dooku and Dark Lady Lumaya. Both had everything in their youth, though gave it up for the dark side, whether by choice or not. Both became primary enemies of a member of the Skywalker bloodline, and both were instrumental in turning a member of the Skywalkers to the dark side. Plus, both were decapitated by a Skywalker. Let's set up this fight. Let's say it takes place in the Palace of Theed on Naboo. I would say the winner wins a tough round of 6 out of 10, though I could see either combatant taking this one. Both combatants would take a calculated, cautious approach before charging in. Lumaya's weapon would definitely keep the Count on his back foot for the majority of the fight. Dooku would be the first to draw on the Force, whether that be telekinesis or lightning. As the fight drags, Dooku would begin to tire, but he would also notice Lumaya's struggle in regards to telekinesis and would begin to lean on that power. As the fight drags on, Lumaya would ultimately find herself disarmed of her weapon, knocked aside by a Force push, or trapped under thrown debris with a crimson blade stabbing through her chest. I declare Count Dooku the battered, broken, exhausted victor. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this Versus series. I have to admit, finding a victor was incredibly difficult, seeing as how powerful both these characters are, but I hope I did the best I could. If you feel that Lumaya could have won this fight and not Dooku, honestly, I have to agree with you, partially. I really didn't know who to choose. I just thought Dooku's telekinetic advantage was enough to win, though Lumaya's physical advantage could be enough, but that's all up to opinion. Feel free to give your opinions in the comments below. I can take them like a man, and I can tank them and admit that I'm wrong. Also, if you have other Versus series ideas, leave them in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.